Knowing the human movement system, or kinetic chain, builds the foundation of what you need to know. It's made up of the nervous, muscular, and skeletal systems. And it requires those three components to work together at their best to move our bodies properly. All movement begins at the nervous system. It serves as the communication center of the body and sends signals to the muscles to initiate movement. To accomplish this, it functions as two separate yet intimately connected components: the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is made up of the brain and spinal cord, and it serves as the primary decision maker for our bodies. The peripheral nervous system is then made up of all the nerves that extend out from the central nervous system. Simply put, the peripheral nerves carry the messages to and from the central nervous system. The most basic functional unit of the nervous system is the neuron, and there's three types: sensory neurons, interneurons, and motor neurons. Sensory neurons, also known as afferent neurons, receive information from the environment and the body, and then they send that information to the central nervous system for processing. Interneurons carry and process information between the sensory and motor neurons. An easy way to remember this is the word inter, which means between. Interneurons interpret what is happening from the senses and then determines what should happen as a result or motor response. Lastly, we have the motor neurons, or efferent neurons. These neurons send messages from the brain to effector sites in the muscles in order to cause a motor response. You can remember them as efferent neurons because they cause an effect, or end at an effector site. For example, if I try to lift a 100-pound dumbbell, my sensory neurons are going to communicate that information to the interneurons, which are then going to interpret it and signal me to use more force in order to lift the object. The command is sent back to the muscles, causing them to produce enough force for me to lift that 100-pound dumbbell. The muscular system is comprised of the muscles that work to move and stabilize our bodies. Although there are other types of muscle tissue, the primary focus for fitness professionals is skeletal muscle, or the muscle that attaches to the skeleton to create bodily movement. Skeletal muscles create movement around joints by exerting force on the bones as levers. That muscular force is then categorized based on the specific role each muscle around a joint needs to take on to create a desired movement. These four roles are agonist, antagonist, synergist, and stabilizer. Agonists are the prime movers of a joint and are usually larger muscles. Antagonists are the opposing muscles of the prime mover and work opposite of the agonist to decelerate the movement that's being produced. Synergists are the assistants to the agonist. They're responsible to help out. However, when an agonist becomes weaker under active, synergists can start taking on the responsibility of the prime mover. This is a condition called synergistic dominance. And this is not a good thing because it can alter joint motion and create faulty movement patterns. Last is the stabilizer function, which works to not only stabilize the body through isometric contraction, but to also prevent any unwanted motion from occurring. It's important to remember that most muscles around a joint can perform any of these four functions, depending on the direction of movement and the plane of motion that it's occurring in. For example, during a chest press, the biceps are an antagonist to the agonist and synergist functions of the pecs and triceps. So, because each muscle has multiple potential functions that dynamically shift based on the movement requirement, the four roles are referred to as the muscle action spectrum. And knowing how they work together will be an integral component of assessing clients' movement efficiency. The last component of the human movement system is the skeletal system. It's important to understand because it supports us, providing shape and form for our bodies. It protects vital organs and functions as the biomechanical base from which movement occurs. Our bones have two major functions. The first is providing a point of leverage for our muscles, while the second is to provide support, which directly affects posture. The muscular system can have a huge impact on the skeletal system and will be discussed in greater detail, including the meaning of static and dynamic posture.